Welcome back to Kevin Toll Reads. I hope you're doing well. It is time for Saturday Shorts, one of my favorite episodes of the week. I love short story form. I love novellas and short stories. I think they're great. They offer so much for so little. And it really forces the author to write a very, well, tightly written short story and tell a tale quickly and with violence and other thought-provoking emotions that you feel as a reader. But yeah, let's dive right into this thing before I get off on a tangent. I have 3 short stories this week, and as you know, I've been integrating Conan and Sherlock Holmes into the rotation here, and so each week I'm going to alternate between Sherlock and Conan, and this week I have a Sherlock Holmes tale, so we're going to get to that soon. The first short story we're going to talk about is from this collection by author Jeffrey Archer. It is his collected short stories. These, as if you didn't catch in my book haul, this collection also has 12 Red Herrings stories in it as well. I chose one that is not in that collection. I went with the short story The Steal. This was published in 1997. The short story The Steal is 19 pages in length, and it's kind of a mystery thriller short story, to be honest with you. It wasn't my favorite, and we're going to talk about it. But let's talk first about the summary. So Christopher and Margaret Roberts are both in education in England, and Christopher is a classics teacher. Margaret is a school matron, and both each year plan and research heavily and put together a lot of thought in their annual vacation in the month of August, preceding going into the new school year. And so they save, they have a selection process, they go through different iterations and whittle their lists down to their short list, and they together make a selection of where they will go on vacation. This year they chose Turkey, and specifically Istanbul. And so this is a really interesting process. They don't have kids, but they view both their children in their schools as their children, so to speak. And I'm sure that's a very relatable sentiment among other people in education out there. And I found all that pretty interesting, pretty cozy read so far. What ends up happening is they go on this vacation and not everything goes to plan. The reason it's called The Steal is when they go on vacation, they end up stealing something from where they go, and different artifacts or little trinkets and tchotchkes that they display in their house. Well, going to Turkey, they're well known for their rugs and carpets, and they are of the mindset that they're going to strike a bargain. And they're very organized, and they have done research, and they have an itinerary, and everything's kind of scheduled and planned and everything else, just like teachers should as they create lesson plans and whatnot. And so that's kind of the premise of this story. So let's talk about what I enjoyed. Well, I enjoyed Christopher and Margaret. I thought they were interesting characters. I like the premise of what they're planning to do. It does kind of take a 180 and in a very relatable way. There is a family or a father and mother that they see at the airport, and they don't think anything of it. They don't really they see them, but they don't really interact with them. And then lo and behold, they meet them in Istanbul, and things kind of evolve from there, which they play a more central role in the story, with Christopher and Margaret. So that's one thing. And then I like the interaction in the bickering with the rug salesmen's in Turkey. I thought that was interesting. I liked all of the research they did, and I liked Archer's writing. This is a pretty quick and to the matter-of-fact read. His prose is really, really good. I really like Archer as an author, to be honest with you. This one, though, wasn't my favorite. It just didn't have that twist, that thriller thing that really was just, pulling me in and kind of making me like, wow. They didn't have that wow factor for me. It does have a little bit of a twist towards the end, but it's not that profound punch you in the face kind of twist. It's more subtle, and it's like, oh yeah, that's, to speak the parlance, that's kind of cheeky. That's kind of cheeky. So in terms of rating and overall, I give this a 3.9. not my favorite from Archer. It was enjoyable. It's not a bad short story. It's a good short story. It's just not a great one. And I was hoping for a great one from Archer because it's been a while since I've done a Jeffrey Archer on Saturday Shorts, and I wanted to get him back in kind of the rotation. But it's a good, cozy little short story. And so that was my first one from Jeffrey Archer, The Steal. I gave it a 3.9. And then as I mentioned, I've been rotating through Sherlock Holmes or adding Sherlock Holmes and Conan to the rotation on Saturday Shorts. And so I chose a new adventure in the tales of Sherlock Holmes, and I went with The Man with the Twisted Lip, which was published in the Strand magazine in its December issue in 1891. It's 27 pages in length, obviously a mystery. It also goes by the name of The 5 Pillows and an Ounce of Shag, which I thought was interesting because that is something that is said towards the end of the story. And so, fun fact. So let's talk about the summary of this. It opens with Watson and his wife. He wakes up in the middle of the night. There is a neighbor that needs his assistance. Her husband has gone missing, and she thinks she has an idea where he's at. He tends to kind of have, I guess you would call it a manic episode, and he goes down to some opium dens, and Watson wakes up in the middle of the night and does his neighborly duty to go find this gentleman. In doing so, he runs across Holmes, and Holmes is in this opium den under a disguise because he is investigating a case for a lady regarding the disappearance of her husband. And so Holmes tells Watson after Watson finds his man and sends him on his way back home to his wife. Holmes is like, well, send word to your wife, and you're going to go with me for a few days and help me on my case. And so Watson and Holmes go on this case where they're trying to find this gentleman that is missing, and under what circumstances is he murdered, is he not? And so that's kind of the summary of this thing. What I enjoyed about this Sherlock Holmes tale was it's quick-paced. It is good to get back into Doyle's writing style. I thought Watson and Holmes worked really well in this case. I really liked the guys that the story starts off with. We get a real central focus on Watson, and then mysteriously he bumps into Holmes in part of his investigation. I really liked how that just kind of created this organic kind of flow to the story and really kicked it off where it's less abrupt. I really appreciated that. It was nice to see, again, Holmes out on a case where he's in disguise. I really enjoy when Holmes is in his disguises. I really like the theatrics about it. It was also really kind of a neat little caper. I really liked how it unfolded, what the premise of it all and how it came to fruition was really interesting and enjoyable. In terms of excerpts, I had a couple I wanted to share with you. Well, I have one I want to share with you and a fun fact. The excerpt was, I confess that I have been as blind as a mole, but it is better to learn wisdom late than never to learn it at all. And that was from Sherlock Holmes when he was kind of berating himself for not understanding what was right in front of him related to the case and the missing husband. And then kind of a fun fact, when I was looking up some about this, because I've never heard of this tale in Sherlock Holmes, the fun fact was Doyle rated this 16th out of 19 of his favorite Holmes tales. I guess he rated Here's My Favorite 19, and this was number 16 on that list. In terms of rating and overall, I gave it a 4.2. It's a very solid entry into Sherlock Holmes as I make my way again through some of these tales. I enjoyed it. It's a nice little afternoon. If you've got an hour set aside, you can go and rip through this thing and have a nice, cozy little mystery with Sherlock Holmes. I think it's really interesting, and Dr. Watson. And so that is my take on The Man with the Twisted Lip from Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Another tale in Sherlock Holmes. I gave it a 4.2 out of 5. And so my third and final tale, I went back to, Stephen King. I went with Nightmares and Dreamscapes. I haven't done anything on Saturday Shorts with this particular short story. And so I haven't read Nightmares and Dreamscapes in many, many years, but I remember Popsy being a pretty good tale. And so I chose the tale Popsy out of this collection. This collection was published in 1993. It's 16 pages in length. It's a kind of a horror thriller. And so the summary of this is you have a man by the name of Briggs Sheridan. He's a gambling addict. He gets in over his head with a bookie, and he has to figure out how he can make some quick money. And he doesn't just owe a couple $100 or a couple $1,000. He owes a couple tens of thousands of dollars. And so he has to find a very profitable way to make money. Well, the bookie puts him on to another guy that is interested in human trafficking. And so he is willing to pay him the money that Sheridan needs to pay off his gambling debt if he can find children for him, and he specifically wants a boy. And so Sheridan makes his way to a mall and tries to abduct a boy. And in doing so, he bites off way more than he can chew. No pun intended. But that's the premise of this thing. What makes it a really good short story is there is a great sense of dread. There's a great sense of wrongness with this short story. It's kind of opens in a way like you don't really understand what's going on as you're getting the point of view from Sheridan, and then it's like, oh, that's not good, that's very wrong, and it's very abrupt. And then you think, wow, this is going to be one of those deals. You have child abduction, and then it flips even further in the wrong, and what ends up happening is so kind of a great twist that it's really, really well done. I felt like it was very relatable when you get some of the backflashes after you're seeing him in this mall and you're understanding why he's there and what is driving him to make these risky decisions about his life that could have lasting consequences. It's very relatable in a way, not saying that I have a gambling habit, but it's very relatable as a human emotion that you are so frazzled and you have to make a decision. You have so little outs in your life that you're stooping to do something like this. And yeah, it's interesting. I like the little flashbacks with the bookie and some of the nuances. There is, after you finish the story, you kind of reflectively look back and think, okay, what was the little Easter eggs that I should have caught, knowing what ends up transpiring with the short story. I thought that was really, really well done. I don't have any excerpts on this one. I felt like if I gave you a couple excerpts, it might give away, and I don't want to ruin this. But in terms of rating and overall, it's a 4.6. Really good short story. I will have to say King, for all his flaws and his falling on my list of favorite authors, he can write a short story. Like most authors, some of them are duds, some of them are great. This is definitely up there in the great tier. It's a really good short story. Popsy, it doesn't really even describe what it's really about, but I'm not going to mention anything else. But the title is very alluding to the story, especially after you read it. It's a great short story. Definitely one I highly recommend if you haven't checked out this collection from King. There's some other really good ones in here as well. That is my take for Saturday Shorts. I hope you're doing well. 3 good ones this week. Next week, there will be another Conan tale amongst some other great short stories. So I hope you're on the lookout for that. And enjoy the rest of your weekend. I really appreciate you spending time on your weekend checking out my channel and talking short stories. Have a great week. And I hope you have a great upcoming week. Talk to you later.